Well, Eric, it's officially June, and it's kind of feeling like we're really rolling in the official part of summer here after the Memorial Day holiday too, because got a lot of or quite a bit of a heat up here for much of the U.S., specifically in Iowa, as a lot of us experienced here, and just kind of wanting to get a little bit of a focus on kind of where we've been over this last May, kind of where we're going through, pushing through the summer, just because as a whole, and as far as markets are concerned, it just kind of seems like, the weather has been fairly good for most of the country. I know I definitely don't want to look past places that have been too wet, places that have been too dry. Can
Yeah.
you give us a little bit of an overview of what we've kind of seen and kind of what we expect here moving through the short term?
Yeah, so my first map just looks back at the month of or excuse me, the month of May in terms of precip ranks. And what's interesting, Dawson, is you need the rain that I'm forecasting for you in the next 48 hours. So does Northern Illinois. So does parts of Wisconsin, Minnesota, Northern Missouri versus Southern Missouri. It's like flooding, need to build an arc down here. And then we got places in the north that are like, hey, just share some of this rain. But you know what's interesting, Dawson, is this was not what I had forecast May to look like. Now, in, I don't know if I should say this, but in my defense, spring is the hardest season to forecast. It just is. It's so volatile. But I thought this area was going to be wet, and we got that right. But I had no idea that April and early May were going to be so wet down here. I mean, this is just the May stats. And the thing about it is there's a whole lot more precipitation coming into that area. I mean, look at the next 7 days. I mean, it's hard to look at a map like this knowing that that's the first week or so of June and go, where's your drought, risk, right? We had so much discussion back in January and February and March and early April about there being drought, and now we look at this and we're like, I don't see it. In fact, we're expecting over parts of Oklahoma, a spot that I had predicted would be in drought by midsummer or by early summer. They have another 6, 7 inches of rain coming. I mean, this is completely flooding this area out. And to your point, Dawson, if I just go back to that first graphic, I think it's important to know that even though we do not see major drought expansion through the Corn Belt specifically in this early spring, you would talk to a lot of folks and say, but they would say, this has not been a great start to the season. It's actually been too wet. They've mudded in crop. They've had to replant. It's been cold east, like in Ohio, and wet. They're way behind over here. But we just have questions. And even though this area has been dry, is that little spot of the I-80 corridor and surrounding counties, is that our garden spot right now? That's what a lot of folks are asking. So let me show you where we were back in spring. Now, March 4th, when we were looking at the drought monitor and saw this much coverage in the Western Corn Belt, the Southern Plains, drought in the Southeast, up the East Coast, there's a lot of the country in drought. And what do we know about drought? Drought tends to beget drought. Yet, as the pattern wore on in April and May, it ended up doing this to our drought monitor. That's a pretty dramatic reduction. Now, are there still issues here? Yeah, there's still issues, and mainly it's from soil moisture problems. Like the beginning of April, we still were watching all of fall's drought lingering down there below the surface, and still, you could say that it's still in place, in that region. But man, we have got a tremendous amount of saturated soil to the south of the primary corn and soybean belt. Major river systems to the south are, man, they've been incredibly, incredibly wet. So we think about all this and say, well, was it predicted? Well, let's do this. Let's go back to the end of March and see what was predicted for April. Now, I felt really confident about this and we got it. We got it. We got that. This is where we failed. I mean, it's been flooded out down here, major severe weather. Right now we're at almost double our number of wind reports for severe winds. We're way above average. We're at 1,040 tornado reports, and we're above average on hail. And that forecast said April should be wet there, but we missed it down here. The biggest whiff for April, May, and June has been the National Multi-Model Ensemble. That was its prediction for spring. We're 2 months into this, and this was just bad. The European model outlook for April, May, and June was better. Can you see it like, hey, it was predicting wetter in this region? And yes, we have been, but it was super wet down here, didn't get it. We had more rainfall back here, didn't get it. And this was bone dry until about, what, 2 weeks ago when it started to rain in Nebraska. So even though the European model is still the superior performer, we're not going to look back at it and go, yeah, here's an A plus, you did well. I think this has been very problematic. And what's been challenging for us is there's all these hints at problems, right? The fading La Nina, the cold water off the Baja, the warm water north of Hawaii. This all spells Triple Ridge with one there, one here, and then the Bermuda High over there. But it just didn't do it. We were this close though, Dawson. Follow between the cool colors and warm, that's where the jet stream was. Now that jet stream went way far to the north, killed the momentum, set off all those fires. I'll show you those in a second right here in Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Ontario. But this is what I missed. You take me back to March and say, well, what do you think? I would not have anticipated so many weak cutoff, but broad in size, low pressure systems that went through this area. Just didn't see it. And we were that close to having major problems. So all the major problems were way up in Canada. And on Sunday, look at the smoke. It was prolific wildfire smoke. In fact, right now, this is the current animation. Look, here's sunrise this morning. There we go. And those fires are still going in northern parts of Saskatchewan and Manitoba. So we have all these issues, including more wildfire smoke, which, by the way, over the weekend, you can thank that wildfire smoke for keeping the temperatures about 5 degrees cooler than otherwise. It could have gotten really hot over this weekend, but it didn't. In fact, we finished the month of May like this. This was May 18th through June 1st. That was a cool finish to the end of the season, excuse me, the end of the month, while Florida was baking, Southern Texas baking, Southern California was baking until they got some clouds from a tropical system that just came through. Now, speaking of tropical systems, Dawson, be very careful with the way you consume weather information on social media because they are going wild over this. This is the GFS model forecast. This is the same day in each of the scenes of this animation. It's June 15th. And if you look down here in the Gulf, watch one, two, three, four, five of the model runs. We're trying to produce a big, big tropical system half a month from now. And it always happens, but we have to be careful with this because the reality is that the probability of there being a big tropical system forming here is low. It's very, very, very low. But we're in hurricane season now. It's June 2nd, right? We're in hurricane season. But more than likely, you're going to see another storm system like Alvin just went over the weekend into Mexico. Didn't break the drought there, but went into that area. Okay, so what else are we watching? There's a bunch of dust blowing off the Sahara. This was just a look yesterday at some of the dust. You can see it in that shading in the background. And over the next 10 days or so, watch this as it resets. Here we go again. These are the plumes of Saharan dust moving across the open Atlantic Ocean. So if you're not smoky, you're dusty. So air quality is a problem right now. Okay, looking at kind of a national radar. We have rain in the Red River Valley of the North. We have storms that are going through the Four Corner states. And these two systems combined with one that you don't see on the radar, which is behind, this are going to come through and hit the Midwest. You saw that in the first map I showed you. We have some severe weather to talk about. There's today. We're going to watch the plains. Tomorrow, this stretches into parts of Missouri, Illinois, Iowa, southern Wisconsin. And we're even watching that again, not on Wednesday, but on Thursday in the southern plains. The first round looks something like this. Look at this rain coming through as these systems combine. I mean, that's hitting Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, Minnesota, Wisconsin. And then eventually it comes through and gets parts of the eastern Corn Belt as well, as a whole bunch of storms come up through parts of the southeast. Now you look at that and say, okay, you just took me through the first 4 days of June, and that's pretty darn wet. In fact, even beyond that, look at these probabilities. Over the next 10 days, that is the chance of grabbing another inch of rain. Here's the chance of grabbing another 2 inches. And you're going, wasn't there all this talk back in winter and early spring about drought? Yeah, there was. And we now need to modify that and start thinking about what this could look like going forward. So I'm going to tell you this, Dawson. Even when you look at these forecasts, we need to remember something important. The atmosphere has shown us in the last 2 years, especially, that season to season transitions can be complete flip-flops. Spring of 23 versus summer of 23. Drought, heavy storms, right? What about summer or well, let's call it spring into summer of 24 in your neck of the woods, record rains, dry fall, like bone dry fall. So we do know that the pattern can do that. Do we have any indications that it's going to do that? Well, it's not happening yet. If it's going to happen, it's going to have to be later in the month of June. Now, on the temperature side of it, yes, we have. Let me skip that and get right here. We've warmed up. It's a hot one today, right? But it doesn't last. Look, that's Tuesday's highs. So if you're in Iowa, you're going to go from almost 90 or in the low 90s to in the low 70s tomorrow. Front comes through, rain comes through with it. Heat builds back into the west by the end of this week. We're not looking at taking on much heat over the next 7 days. And we look out there even farther, and it looks something like this. That's your next 5 days. That's day 5 through 10, where all the heat comes into the west. And there's day 10 through 15. Maybe there's a signal out there past middle of the month that we are going to get hotter and drier. But my goodness, it's not as though we've started off this May and now into early June with any major strikes against us to be developing big drought. So that's what I see now. This is the newest update I've got for you.
Yeah, it kind of makes me think as we kick off the long range here is of course looking at that question of now what? You know,
Yeah.
kind of what so now we're kind of building up these moisture reserves in a lot of areas that again with this next system are going in places what kind of seems like to really be needing it. Of course, you're talking about some big flooding down in the south where they're probably not needing that much rain, but areas further north, they're probably still looking for some good rains here
Yeah.
moving forward. So kind of looking at that long range and maybe pinpointing, what is that next shift going to be? Because we've been talking about what you've been looking at is probably these southwest or yeah, from the southwest jet streams that have been bringing all this moisture. Now we're transitioning into summer where you talk more northwest flow. Kind of is
Yeah.
that going to be a little bit of a key player here moving forward?
It can be, but it's got to get hot first. You don't get northwest flow until you get hot, and we just haven't gotten there yet. So I can tell you this, I don't anticipate the front half of June to look like the back half. And that's because there's a big move taking place in the MJO. And that's too big of a driver. So whatever we're seeing now, we may see something different in the back half of the month. Here's what it looks like in the nerdy way I like to look at it. A big area of subsidence over the next 15 days coming here. Now, what does all that mean? Well, historically, it can be something that lands us here. And that would mean a bigger ridge that runs again into Canada, anchored more in Montana, with cutoff lows to the south of it, but mainly staying in the southwest. Why is this wet? Well, it's been super wet there. I just want to know if by the time we finish this month of June, does more of this bleed over here with not only warmer but hotter conditions? And I think the end of June will not look like the beginning of June. Now, question is it going to get stuck and stay stuck? Some of the models say no. Like the CFS V2, okay, it's going June 16th to June 22nd. Look, heat coming back in and dryness. But then it's saying, but getting out there to the 23rd through 29th storms, right? So nothing is showing up permanent in the models. And my old favorite, the European model, this is what it's got from mid-June to mid-July, and it's doing the same thing again. It's been trying to divide the country right there with the haves and have-nots. And did it get it right for April? No. Did it get it right for May? Not really. It wants to just build drought in a place that I'm about to forecast more storms for. So I got to be honest with you. I think we're in a low predictability time period. And until things start adding up to increase that skill, we can't put a whole lot of trust in these sub-seasonal models. Now, when we talk next Monday, there will be a brand new long range update from the European model. It's actually going to come out on the 5th. Be nice for me to have the whole weekend to analyze it and see what it looks like. And maybe by the time we chat on Monday, we could also have the new seasonal NMME. But man, I thought I grilled the enemy pretty good here. It's not been a good performer for this summer weather. I'm just going to tell you this, Dawson, and this is the main thing to take away. I think that the secret is going to lie in this. There's been a bit of a cycle to the pattern. This region I'm going to highlight for you here is a time period from that happened back in late March through all of April and into May, where the atmosphere lost a bunch of momentum. That's what those blue-green colors mean. Now, during that time period, where did the jet stream go? Went way far north. Normally, when I see that, I'd be like, oh, dry, dry, dry. But for some reason, and I have to dig more deeper into this, when the atmosphere did this, it also cut off all of those little lows that kept moving across the country, making it wet. Southern Plains, Mid-South, Ohio Valley. We just started another episode of that back in mid-May, but it was strong winds to the north. And what I want to know is, does this come back in June? Because if it comes back in June, we don't cut off lows and bring them across the country. We cut them off and leave them in California. I would need that to happen to be right on any sort of a longer term drought outlook for the Western Corn Belt. And given that I gave myself a grade this morning of a D plus on my spring forecasting for the plains, I'm not overly excited about my own skill and accuracy at this point. If that confidence changes, Dawson, we'll talk about it. But at this point, these are weird ingredients that have to come together. And my only thought process is I have, historical evidence of patterns just flipping on a dime. And are we looking at that again? Are we looking at one of these things where right now we're like, shut it off, shut it off, shut it off? And in 3 weeks, we're like, bring it back. We need it. I don't know. That may be the case for this upcoming, early summer time frame.
Yeah, definitely never fun to be wrong, but I guess when it comes at the benefit of getting the moisture where it needs to be, I'm sure a lot of people aren't too terrible or too terribly hurt about that one.
No, but you know what? People love to give you an earful, and I just try to remind them, I'm like, I'm trying to do the hardest thing, right? It's
Hmm.
try predict the future. And we're trying to predict the future of something that's nonlinear and chaotic and something that has been known and studied forever to exhibit very poor skill. I mean, between what you and I try to do, which is to predict the markets and predict the weather, it's possible, but we try every day and we're masters of failure, right? But the difference is
Hmm.
and you are the same. I'm going to fail forward. I want to learn something for this. But unfortunately, Dawson, it means the best prediction I will ever give will be like the one I give the day before I retire, when I have an entire career of institutional knowledge built up and then I quit because I'm too old. So, that's the way it's going to be. And I think it's good that we can, you know, take some of this with a grain of salt. But it's a reminder, right? You never ever bet the farm on a forecast. And I'll be honest, Dawson, I have never told anybody that my forecasts are set in stone and they're gospel truth and you better make a decision based upon it. We try to
Hmm.
convey that uncertainty. We mainly try to teach what you need to look for if there's going to be a problem. And I think that's why I think I still have some credibility with folks out there. And I hope to God I maintain that for a while longer. So there you go. That's my 2 cents on it.
Well, we'll continue to bring you back on each week and of course get your insights. So with that, again, always appreciate your insights and we'll keep talking as things continue to develop this summer and probably looking at a little bit more volatility here moving forward.
Sounds good, Dawson. Thanks.